Hey, hello. Today we'll be presenting the norms track, and we are group 67. My name is Rudolph Civil, and I'll be the dev team member. Adrian is our product manager, and Nicholas is the second team member for dev. The Scrum Master would be Maria.
So for our first project update, we designed the website user interface using Figma tools, which we'll take a look at in the next slide. We also successfully parsed approximately 300K food data items. We also researched and set up the user authentication, which allows users to create a new account and verify user with account name and password. And finally, we successfully set up the React framework environment in the project's GitHub repository. So for our first technical progress, we have the website design made on Figma. And as you can see, there's various pages that will be displayed to the user. For example, we have the landing page that shows the NormTrack logo and several buttons that the user can click on that will direct them to other pages like the main search bar for looking up foods or meals and their nutritional facts, as well as a page for them to create an account if they don't have one yet, or sign in if they do have.
So in order for our diet tracker to be able to know the nutrition values and the sugar, the fat of everything that you put into the website and search in the database, we had to actually fill a database. So we found a huge JSON file and parsed it into about 370,000 items that all have individual nutrition values for calories, fat, sugar, protein, all of that. And there's just a whole database full of them now.
So I'm in charge of implementing login authentication for users. We're using email/password authentication method, which is basically the industry standard. I implemented it with Node.js with Express Framework and Passport.js, which is an authentication middleware for Node. Our current implementation supports checking for false login information and outputs messages such as, sorry, the account cannot be found or the password is incorrect. And currently we implemented using an array of object variable to store all the user information. So in the future, we will move the information to a database. The password is also hashed using an external package named bcrypt. So we're in no way storing our user password in raw format.
Yes, this is the React framework. The React framework is up and ready to go. The next step is to use a copycat tool recommended by Figma to help convert the front end UI into the React framework. There are other tools that can basically help you do the same thing. But I think what we're gonna go do, what we'll be doing is using the tool recommended by Figma. Yes, and for the whole framework, the next step to moving forward will be basically implementing like the UI page that you've seen before and a few slides ago into the React framework. And later on, I'll show you just the React framework setup.
So in terms of functionality, our team has mainly been working on setting up environments and the database, for example. So here's a query into the database. It shows that there are items in the database like granola, cinnamon, rice, and they all have calories, sugar, fat. So that will be extremely useful when we set up hosting for the database and are able to search through it and sort through it and stuff. And so you can see that there's no errors when I ran the script to parse the JSON file. There's no output at all, but if there was an error, it would have showed, and it ran for an hour and then goes to the next line to show that it's done running. So there has no errors at all. Works completely fine. And you can see we can select from the database to see all the items.
And yes, the functionality for the framework, I basically had to like download the framework and get it all set up with VS Code and make sure that like everything was good and uploaded to the GitHub repo. But this is a framework, basically just a simple framework. It's just outputting just a title. This is Diet Tracker. And the next step would be just converting the UI that we created on Figma into the framework, which is I'm going to be doing that very soon after after we finalize the UI itself, just the design and stuff like that. I'm going to basically take it from Figma and convert it into the React framework. This process, it depends. This process should be pretty easy to do, but one thing that we might run into, always possible to run into, is just debugging issues. We might find like a bug that we need to just be able to figure out and fix. So yeah. And sprint backlog accomplishments. We accomplished parsing the CSV files, where Nicholas showed you that we parsed over 300,000 lines of food, which takes a pretty long time to do. And we also worked on prompting users, and that has been prompting users on like, hey, their inputs. That has been done through Figma. So when we upload the Figma into the React framework, that would basically be done. We also set up the React framework. That's done. And one thing that we haven't completed is basically being able to connect the Figma to the React framework. And also one thing that has not been I think that's one of the most important things to do to accomplish some of the spraying backlogs that we didn't get to, such as there's one that we like implement fuzzy search that matches a similar content to compensate for human error. These are things that like we haven't gotten to because the Figma and React's framework hasn't been completed yet.
So for our Kanban board, we use the Trello website to help us make the board. And as you can see, we split it up into 4 sections labeled backlog to represent the current backlog, next backlog to represent the next one we'll be working on, in progress to show items that have been started but not completed yet, and finally done for items that have been finalized. And as you can see, we have completed most of the items on our current backlog.
So for our second sprint, we are putting full force on front-end development. So we're making sure that the web design looks exactly like the Figma file. And we're also trying to make sure that all buttons are responsive and their functionality are correct. So that involves full stack development, sending data from front end to back end and from back end to front end, as well as the database connection between back end. And we will also be implementing a user database that stores login information, as I previously said. And it will also store other product that user inputted themselves. So when the user is searching for product, both products from food database and user database will show up.
So as I said earlier, we spent most of our time working on the early stages of development, setting up the environment, the framework, and the UI. And as Adrian said in the last slide, we're now going to be working on implementing all of that and focusing on actually getting that all connected and set up. And currently we don't have any hosting for the website or the databases, and we need to work on that too. Find a host, probably use AWS so that we can connect to the database remotely, and all of us can use the database instead. The database can work on the website. You can search for stuff, and the website can be accessed anywhere. So yeah, it shouldn't be that hard to find a host, and a few of us have experience using AWS, so we will get that set up next. And yeah, that is our presentation. Thank you.
Good job, guys.